What's up, guys? Today is Tuesday, July 16th. I have a special guest with me today, Justin Nelson. I already
Nelson.
fucked it up. And Nelson from Sphere Rocket VA. I'm really interested in today's call. I'm happy and excited about it. I'm going to run over a couple things we got going on this week. Just right after this call, later on tonight at 5:30, I'm going to be on Maximilian D's channel. We're going to be talking about everything direct seller, marketing, acquisitions, everything. And then that's at 5:30. That's going to be going down live. Make sure you register. I believe the link is below. If not, drop a comment and we will drop it. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm going to be sitting down with Mason, and we're going to be talking about direct to seller path flows. We're going to be talking live with some sellers. We're going to talk negotiations. That's going to be on tomorrow's 1 o'clock call. Make sure you tune in for that. And then Thursday, I'm actually going to be, we're going to have our open office event. So Thursday night, 5:30, doors open office event. It is going to be focused on marketing. All right, so marketing direct to seller, real estate. That is what it is focused on. Everything A to Z, everything's open. Come on out. Registration link should be in the comments. If not, drop a comment and we will get it to you. It's right there on Eventbrite, right in Farmers Branch, Dallas. Come on out to the office. Justin, thank you so much for coming out today,
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with your background. All right.
Yep.
So first and foremost, I hate VAs.
Yep.
All right. So we're gonna have a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
I hate VAs because people advertise them as a solution when they shouldn't be. In most cases, shouldn't be used for a solution. Right. They're just a tool. They're a leverage. Thing like that. And a lot of times people get into them, they don't understand how to actually use VAs. I was just telling you earlier, I hired a VA 2 months ago, worked with her for a week, and then I had to fire her, right? Just because I, as the manager of it, didn't go in with the right mentality. I didn't have the right SOPs set in place, and everything just went out the window. So, what sets your company different? Right? What makes it different?
Yeah. So, obviously, we'll probably dive into some specifics later on how we got started and the company structure because, we've even changed as we've learned, But, what really makes us different is because we're so focused on the recruitment piece. We'll kind of talk in generalities for a minute. When it comes, because I have about 150 in the Philippines work for me directly. 7,000 we've placed with other people. But when I'm looking at my 150 virtual assistants that I have, and even my 30 US based team members. I know you have US based team members here too. The hiring process is the most critical piece, right? If you mess up the hiring process, sometimes you can even perfect the hiring process and still the wrong person gets through, right? And so the first thing is most people have never they've never hired a virtual assistant. So the first, piece of foundation of our company is helping those that have never hired a virtual assistant, do that piece of it. But even more, you said it perfectly, is there's a lot of misnomers out there about best practices that oversold that this is going to fix all of your business problems and leads will come abundantly because you just hired someone at $3 an hour. And so our job, I always like to say, we're a coaching and consulting company that just happens to use VAs a lot when we plug in people. And so over time, people have come to us to know us as the VA people. And that's kind of what business evolved for us. And so when you look at the core foundation of what we do, we are a recruiter to find you the talent that you need in the virtual assistant space.
People don't even know how to hire, right? Let's not hire VAs. They get into this, they might fill a deal or two, then they want to start getting to flipping, or they get better at gen and they want to do more. They want to start scaling, and then their first thing to do, the first step as a solo entrepreneur is to hire. Now, whether or not you're going to hire in-house or a VA, it can go wrong very quickly. And a lot of times they'll hit that roadblock, like, oh, that hire didn't work out. I'm just going to keep on doing the work myself. I'm not going to scale. I'm not going to make my life easier. There's times with flippers, they'll hire a GC or somebody to just do project management, and that'll fail, and they'll say, listen, that I have to focus still my time and energy on flipping, right? That's where my money's made. When in all reality, that's not. That's where you're capturing it, but it's actually made on the lead gen side.
Absolutely.
So where's your time better focused? So let's start off, because I did Star Wars this, right? I started right in the middle. Your journey, where did you start, right?
Yes.
You were in real estate originally.
Yeah, so my journey, it's really interesting, especially in the wholesaling world. A lot of people, what I love about wholesaling is you can start young, right? You can start with no role. You can start with you don't need a license. You don't need all those things. So I actually got started at 15 as an inside sales agent. So I actually got a job working as a cold caller for a local real estate team in the Denver market when I got started. Now, I don't even know, it was probably illegal. I was probably breaking the rules because I was working for a licensed company, and I just didn't know better. But at 16, I found I was really good at it because I had that naiveness. And I think, at 16, I'd call someone and be like, you want to sell your house? And they'd be like, no, fuck off. And I'd be like, oh, no problem. I'll call the next one, right? And so that's kind of where I got my start, and I was really good at it because I didn't have that 30, 40, 50-year-old mentality where we might have been scarred or scared. I was just kind of like, all right, cool, go to the next one. So did that until I was 18. I got my license, then built a real estate team from 18 to 22. Ended up selling off a portion that I owned to my dad, who got into real estate when I was 16. So it was kind of cool for when I was 15. So when he got into real estate, I got into real estate because he's like, I don't know anything about social media. So I didn't grow up in real estate, but I got to start at the same time, which was really cool. So we did that from 18 to 22.
Does he still have that?
Yeah, so he actually, yes and no. He's currently slowing it down a little. He actually works for us now full time. So I was able to hire him, my mom, my in-laws now all work for me. So it's really cool. But yeah, he does. He's still.
I love that you're able to do that and provide for your family, as cliche that says, but providing a job for your mom and dad, that means a lot.
But it's super cool because he was making $3 million a year in commissions. He was running a real estate team. And so to be able to see how it all, my small piece of it, and then growing it and selling it back and having him come work for this company now and sacrifice what he knows he could probably make $3 million at. It's not like it's like, hey, Dad, you're making zero money. Here's a job. And so that was kind of my background. However, what I realized, and a lot of wholesalers and investors realize, is the residential real estate game. I think there's a lot of investors that benefit from a license, but real estate agents by trade, they're going to be stuck in a rat race forever. Mm-hmm. They're not buying fix and flips. They're not holding property. They're not very smart with creative financing at all. Most of them are just, I can sell a home if someone calls me to sell a home.
They're even doing, on average, only 3 to 5 deals per annual transaction, right? Whatever you want to call it.
No retirement, right? Because it's kind of like a stock trader not having stocks. Mm-hmm. So many real estate just don't have real estate, and so and when you sell homes, it's a little bit like investing. It can be up and down, flow of income and things like that. But as an investor, if you're able to stock away a sub 2 here, or whatever your strategy is here and there, maybe you look back in 30 years, you have 40, 50, 100 properties, whatever your goal is to, once you can get off that wholesaling.
I used to always say when I was refinancing, I was like, every property that you can keep is another bar of gold, right?
Absolutely.
Might be some big, some small, but every time stack them away. They might not cash flow, some do cash flow, but eventually you'll be able to cash them out. Okay, they're just bars of gold over time. That you get to claim taxes on too.
Yeah, 100%. So when I was 22, I was looking at all these 6-year-olds driving around showing property still. I was like, man, why has everybody been in the industry 30, 40 years? Like, retirement, where's this freedom? Where's this? And so it kind of led me down this path of, starting to use virtual assistants for my own real estate business. A lot of failures there, right? My first 10 assistants would probably cuss my name, tell me I'm the worst. I said they were the worst. It was a horrible experience. I was so IVA.
Where were you finding them?
So I was finding them through Online Jobs PH, which, by the way, I think is a great platform.
No, so there's a lot of great platforms out there. Online Jobs PH, a six-guide fucking
Fiverr, Upwork,
Fiverr, Upwork, all of those I use. We use them right nonstop. So I'm never bashing VAs directly. Yeah. I'm always bashing the people that think that they're going to use them and be successful right out the gate.
100%.
And that also goes. I also have this curse with people that want to get into marketing and they jump right into a PPC campaign.
Yeah. I'm
like, oh my God! Instead, hire professionals to do your first marketing campaign because you're not going to be able to get a refund when you fuck that up. So what? All right. So your business model, what was it? You had a couple of VAs where they working just cold calls for you, and then you were working wholesales after that.
So in real estate, when I was in traditional real estate, I was just trying to sell as many homes as I could.
Okay.
At 22, I started
retail.
doing retail, very retail based. But then I started to see the other side and go, there's a good mixture that I could do here. So I started to invest in property by just buying and holding, right? Nothing creative. And I did something I didn't learn from someone like a Pace Morgan until later on. But did that until I was 22. But then what was funny is I started to have retail success with VAs, right? Some were cold calling, some were doing these different things. And I started to get friends calling me going, hey, wait, I just kind of, you said, I hired this person, it didn't work. Part of it was on me, a lot of it was on them. And so I started to hire VAs and then place them with other people. It didn't work out that well to start, right? But then when I figured out, okay, I've learned, I take all my experience, I give them a VA, and now I'm going to coach and mentor them through this and tell them here's what to expect, here's what's going to happen that's going to go wrong. People started to have a lot of success. At 22, that word started to get out about that. And next thing you know, I was actually in Dallas. I moved to Dallas in 2020, 27 now, and I woke up 1 month to 60 grand worth of revenue by, 10 people paid me $6 grand a pop to do a one-time placement a VA. And, 60 grand a month when I had 1, 2, 3 VAs was 58 grand in profit. There's someone calling me for me to go on the website to give them a VA, because the value at that time wasn't me to go get them the VA. I just used the website. I gave it to them and I provided the coaching and consulting. We've changed that over time because we find that some people need the consulting, some people don't. But yeah, I woke up with 60 grand 1 month. It was 2020. It was March of 2020. So I started this company February 15th, 2020. So I like to humbly say I was very lucky. Like, who else would they started a VA company February 15th of 2020? No clue.
You rode that wave up, right?
Yeah, I was very lucky. It's not like, all of a sudden Justin grew 7,000 VAs because he's a hard worker. I am a hard worker, but it was very much a wave that we've been able to continue. And so retail is where I got started. And then once I got out of retail and transitioned to where I'm the VA guy now, I'm going to sell virtual assistants. I then started to focus a lot of my personal attention on the revenue I was creating and invested that back into investments, real estate, things like that.
One thing I just want to highlight, right, because I don't know if I did a good enough job in the beginning, is why, and the reason why I'm actually sitting down with you today is because you've structured your business differently than other VA shops, right? In the past, we've hired VA shops where, hey, we want a cold caller, we want X, Y, and Z, they're going to manage them. They'll start killing it. They'll start doing well, performing well. They'll get a promotion in their VA company. And next thing you know, we get another jackknife that we have to wait through hire and train. So then we get lost revenue production just because they took that person. We have negative because we spend time and energy in that person. You guys don't do that at all.
Yeah. No, not at all. So most VA companies, when I was part of the reason why I transitioned and started my own company is when I was using companies, they were always an upcharge model, right? I hired a VA at $3 an hour. I knew that's what the VA was making, but they were charging me $10 an hour. So I was paying $10 an hour to 1-800-VA, but I knew the VA was only getting free.
Yeah.
So
no matter how much you try to sugarcoat, if that person still only sees $3 coming into their bank account, they're still only going to be so happy with you. Right?
Correct.
Like, because no matter what, you're not paying enough and they're working for you.
Yeah. And ultimately, I don't have full control. I don't have full control. They might say I do, but I don't, right? Because I can't call my VA and do this, and do this without approval from the company they work for. And so the very first thing we did when we started a VA company is we said, hey, when I hire a VA for you, I'm a consultant and I'm a recruiter and I'm just good at the VA game. When I hire you a team member, I want you to take full control. They're working for you directly. There is no contract between me and that VA. That contract is between me and you. I am helping you as a consultant to find the right person and have success for life. Not that relationship, right? And the VAs we found loved being able to work for you directly because now there's not a third. If you want to pay him $5 an hour, pay him $5. If you want to give him a bonus of $100, that's not going through me, right? My rate is with you. And so we really had a lot of success because the VAs now weren't living in this bureaucratic red tape company. They had this freedom to do with you. The other thing that we found a lot is if I came to you and you said, hey, Justin, like I think you said you had however many people in office here working for you. When you hire talent, if you were to put out a salary, on job hunter or whatever, Indeed, you said, we're offering 10 grand a year as a salary. What kind of talent are you going to get for 10 grand a year?
Dog shit.
What if you said 200 grand a year?
A lot
Much better. And so whenever I'm paying this company 10, but they're paying the VA 3, we call that a salary cap. That VA's talent level is only going to be a 30. And they're like, well, why is that? Well, because when that company is advertising in the Philippines for that job, that's $3 an hour. $3 an hour is equivalent to $3 grand a year. Now, I will be honest. I have a lot of people that make $3 an hour. That's worth 30 grand a year, but they're doing admin tasks. They're doing, task of
Data entry.
data entry. They're not doing
talking
high level tasks.
Mhm.
But you started off by saying you're a social media person. I don't think I've hired a social media person under $6-7 an hour ever, because social media image, it's not something I'm naturally good at, right? It's not something I naturally like. So I had to go hire someone that's the equivalency of making $70,000 a year. But it's so tricky, because if you call a shop and they charge you $8 an hour, you're like, all right, it's $8 an hour. Well, it's actually 3.
That's
So to actually pay 7 to 8, you're paying 15 to 20. And if you're paying 15 to 20, what are you going to do then? I wonder if I can just get this in my office. And so it kind of eats into that gap of the exchange.
Do you guys provide training videos, or how's that mentorship? How's that work?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in, one of my coaches, John, he says batteries included, right? Batteries included. There are some positions where I want them to have no background in that position, so I can train them exactly how I want to. If I have an admin that's going to do something specific, maybe I get them with admin background, but I train them. But there's a lot of positions I want them to come in and be able to teach me how to do it.
Mhm.
Now, you don't usually associate a VA teaching you how to do something, because that's just not normally how it goes. But when you find the right talent and you pay them the right amount of money, and they get all of that money, they can come in and be smarter and have better education to teach you how to do things.
They even they'll because they see the value in it, right? They see
Correct.
the value in you being profitable. If you're an investor, if you're a business owner, if you're using them for marketing or anything, right? So a lot of times they'll take it on to go above and beyond, trying to improve things or do more. I really love that when VAs become like a home sense, and that's what I was trying to provide, right? But I knew the failure was with me, right? One of the things I didn't even know was all the goddamn stupid apps and softwares that you need to provide them, right? Like I didn't hire a social media / email copywriter, right? Oh shit, I have to give them direct access to all these things, and then after I fired them, I had to go change
really fast.
too many
You might
passwords.
freak out. Oh my god!
And I paid her an additional week. Like, I'm so sorry. This is obviously me, not you. I felt like George Costanza so badly. I'm telling you, it's me, not you.
Yep.
But man, it was bad. If anybody out there is listening, if anybody has tried to hire a VA, if anybody has any questions specifically to this conversation, anybody wants to drop a dime, drop a comment, let us know. I always have to throw that out there. Also, smash the like button. God damn it. So what advice would you give to people first time hiring?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's really interesting. It's a complicated question, because you mentioned earlier, you sometimes struggle with like the wholesaler that just made a little bit of money looking to make their first hire. And, my conversation answer to your question is different for that person than the person that's like, well, I run, a $20K a month business and I have some revenue, I have some safety net.
So on that first side, that's the typical. When somebody is getting to scale, they already know how to buy and hire, but it's always going to be that first initial hire.
Yeah.
If it's a flipper, it's going to be maybe a project manager, or GC. If it is the whole, it's going to be a cold caller or something in that regard. So let's aim toward that. We're going from one deal to I want to start doing 2, 3 a month.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, it sounds counterintuitive. The gurus online, the Facebook ads are going to sell you the lead gen, right? They're going to sell you your biggest pain point. For most people, we're scared of the phone. We're scared of making phone calls. I mean, if you don't think you're scared, you are scared, right? Most part. And so they want to offshore that. The problem with offshoring that is if you're not good at it, you're not an expert at it, I could give you the best cold caller in the world. They can give you all the hottest leads, but if you're not used to closing a cold call lead's a lot different than a mailer lead, a lot different than your different methods. And so I believe in order to do that, you got to become the expert first. So as you're becoming that expert in cold calling, I think you get to 3, 4, 5 deals a month by you cold calling if you really dug into it. But it's almost always an executive admin for me. It's almost always the first hire I tell people to make. Now, someone's like, well, I'm only doing 1, 2 deals. What's an executive admin going to do? Their job is to free up 90% of your life so you can lead gen more. Now, whether someone has advice from I can't force them to do that.
Role specific, so put that out there so I can imagine.
Yeah. So
what jobs.
Yeah. So let's say that I can convince you your job is to cold call, be a cold call killer. You got an executive admin, right? The first thing that executive admin every day is they're going to jump on every phone call with you, and they're going to take your notes. They're going to do your follow-ups. They're going to do, you're on with the seller. Hey, I'm going to drop this at your house, right? Hey, I'm going to come visit this. They're managing your ability to just sit on the phone 8 hours a day.
So they actually sit there and listen on their calls and everything.
Yeah, of course. So of course, I'm going to hear, well, there's AI for that. Well, yeah, but is the AI going to prep a comp package and then drop it off? Are they going to drive in the car to go to the appointment?
You still have to do something with that AI. That AI isn't set up for automation, right? That's the problem with AI is everybody thinks it's going to solve the problems, but it doesn't, right? Yeah, it'll do X, Y, Z for you, but you still have to get in there and push it out.
Well, and let me tell you this. Let's say you have a cold caller, you're crushing it, and you're calling. There is so much leakage. I mean, if you're cherry picking every deal that you can get, you're going to lose those 10 to 12 iffy but warm conversations a day, and you're going to zone in on just the 1 or 2 really hot ones. But what are you doing with those 10 to 12 that had an okay conversation? They weren't super ready, right? So my executive admin could also be focusing on data logging, right? Building a spreadsheet of our 100 calls we made today. 90 were FUs, 8 were warm calls, and then 2 were hot, which you could work and pursue and put a top priority. So my executive admin are high enough level that they're going to work on those 8 too. So they're not technically a cold caller, not lead generator, but we're really staying super organized so there's no leakage.
What systems do I need in place to hire on that person?
So again, most people have nothing when they come to us, right? They have nothing in place. And then there's some gifts I can leave with you that you're more welcome to share with your community too. But the biggest things in systems I usually say is number 1, a job description. What is that person going to do? Right? Because a lot of times you don't even know what that person's going to do. Like in a good crazy example of this, a lot of people in the wholesaling realm is very off topic, but a lot of them love to go to the gym. They love to work out. Like just having your VA do your meal prep, do things like that gives you that energy back to realign to your business. And so, the job description is very, clear on, hey, this is how my executive admin is
You literally have to do a step-by-step process. Like I didn't realize that when you're like, hey, listen, you don't just do A, C, and I want a project. You need to do, all right, listen, you go here, do this. Turn the page, do this, right? I want it to look like A, B, C. You have to give them such a detailed outline of everything involved with whatever task it is. If it's just cold calling, I want, after you're done cold calling, I want to follow up with this procedures and stuff like that. There's so much that goes involved that people don't fucking realize.
Well, for those that don't know me that well, I spend about 200 days a year on the road, traveling, and I speak. That's all I do. That's all we do to generate business. And number one thing I give people at every conference, every webinar like this, or live, is I give them a link to a 900-page book. There's no pitch in it. There's no selling. It is a 900-page book where you can go to a page that says executive admin for real estate, and it says here are the top 100 tasks that VA could do. I'm going to tell you to go through and highlight the top 30 or 40 that apply to you that you would need, and that's going to be phase number 1. That's the task list. And that person's going to do 30 to 40 things. And like you said, specifics, the SOPs. When we have an SOP section, you go to that same position. It's like, this is how a VA orders your meal prep. It's already got all this stuff written out. And so, obviously from my perspective, if someone's coming to me, I have those resources to give them, right, to help them, come off the bat. If you're not using someone like me and you're using an online jobs PH, just all they're there is to give you the VA, I would say job descriptions number 1, having a daily schedule for them. What are they doing at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock? It might seem a little micromanaging, but it's very clear expectations of like, this is what you do at 8, this is what you do at 9, this is what you do at 10. I mean, the right VA will eventually be able to not have to get on that kind of structure. They're going to understand and be able to free flow. That's kind of the biggest pieces I would tell someone ready to start.
I love that you have that all written out, ready to go, because man, I would have killed to have that just to understand what I need at the time. I had a question and it just popped out of my head. I apologize. Oh no, I got it. So VAs being popping off everywhere. What are so I know you started in real estate and doing VAs and that. What are some of the newer customers, if you will, right, that are starting to use them? Because I know they can be personal assistants. I know VAs that are getting $30 an hour overseas, and they're running entire companies for people. Do you work with that type of VA customer? Who is that avatar of a business owner?
Yeah. So
what other business?
Yeah, so we're super custom at this point. And like we'll have, Fortune 500 companies come to us and go, we need someone that we're willing to pay $50 an hour in the Philippines, which is equivalent to $500,000 a year. So, because when you look back at history of a VA is a really soft term to outsourcing. But outsourcing, we look at what outsourcing is. Outsourcing was IBM building a big business in America and then needing to profit more, and they slashed jobs here. They outsourced. Well, most people that we're dealing with in our arena of entrepreneurship, kind of mid-level companies, small company businesses, we're not really outsourcing. We're just trying to find labor to help fit our budget until we can keep growing. Like I still love growing my US team. I'm not just Philippines only. And so in that roundabout way, one of the things I found was it's really because I don't have a restriction on what you can pay. If you want the $30 an hour person, cool. If you need someone at 50 yet, cool. And so to wrap it back to like IBM and Airbnb, if you told me today, hey Justin, I have 500 Airbnbs I'm managing. I need someone to run my Airbnb, chat windows and check in outs. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the Philippines and go, hey, for $20 an hour, I can find you someone that used to run a department for Airbnb out of their backend system.
Well, so how do you go about vetting and stuff? Because that's another. All right. So one thing I've found is on the side, right? People go to hire, and I've had this same exact discussion. Is, hey, I've done 3 to 5 deals. I'm going to start in PPC.
Yep.
I got a marketing budget. I'm going to start doing it in North Carolina, Florida, Texas. I think there was one other one. So it's multi-state PPC. I was like, oh, okay. You already have somebody set up, or you in-house, you start asking questions. I'm not trying to shut down this guy's dreams, right? Because he's all fired up about it. And he hits me with, well, this is somebody that used to work for XYZ being a well-known company. And I'm like, how do you vet that person? How do I? You're working with a VA that could very easily, I used to work with XYZ, and obviously you know their results. So, man, there's so much dodginess that you're betting on.
Yeah. So what's really interesting about the investor space is almost everything that people want to hire a VA for is actually you're not supposed to hire a VA for. The lead generation piece and your PPC and your marketing, almost for the most part, you're going to hire VAs in those roles as support roles. Very rarely are your big companies like yours and others in the real estate space are there just completely led VA departments. You will see a lot of times a lot of VA support. But in the PPC and the lead gen call, it's very rarely that it's all just VA based, managed by VAs. The managed position for the VAs, the head honcho of it, are executives. They're executive admins. They're those different things. To answer your question, usually it's people just doing it wrong. They're trying to put the highest level positions on VAs, and they're just failing from that perspective.
So even like if you're trying to find a $20 range, if I'm trying to find a personal assistant that's going to run my business, what's walk me through a hiring process?
Yeah. So first off, we're going to go. So like right now in the Philippines, we spend a lot of money on advertisements and job fairs and things like that. First and foremost, because we are going direct to consumer with you and we're letting you connect them, if you put $20 an hour out there, you're going to get anywhere between 60 to 70,000 applications for your job. Because even across my 7,000 hires we've made, we on average pay $4.15 an hour. Across 7,000, $4.15 is still the average. My average people on my team is making 5 to 6. And so 20 is a very, very high level position. And so I always say the more money you have to spend 10 to 15 in the Philippines before you spend 10 to 15 here, because 10 to 15 in the Philippines, if you have the right recruitment, is going to be big. So when you're asking me what do, we do a lot of the same things you would do here, right? Job board, Facebook ads, direct targeting. I have 60 recruiters on my team. Their job is they're in LinkedIn all day. They're looking for high level talent. We're collecting resumes at hundreds of thousands of volume per quarter. It's just scanning, looking for talent. And this is kind of maybe a side nugget that's all about topic. But one thing I always preach is so many people when they hire a VA, they hire someone that's jobless. They're looking for a job. Well, when you think about who's looking for a job, why are they looking? I'm not saying
they're why are they unemployed, right? Why are they already?
Sometimes it's I just had a kid, I went on pregnancy leave for 6 months. Sometimes it's I did this, but 9 times out of 10, if it was jobless, there might be a question about that. It's like the job gap. Like my wife just quit her job in Nashville. Come here, she's so worried about the job gap. I was like, it's okay. You have a unique scenario. But when you look at job gaps, it's really interesting. They got hired. They got let go. The company didn't have enough success. And so I put this little nugget out there that one of the things we do differently, that's how you start the question. I was like, what do you guys do? I'm really looking for people that already have jobs. I'm looking for the person that works at Airbnb is still there, happy, but they might be making $5 an hour, but they want to come work for you at 8. And that person's going to come and teach you things that you don't know, right?
So that's the first filter to get them down from 3,000 to 2,000, let's just say. And then you guys go through them, or do we go through them?
Yeah.
Like me as the business owner, am I going through the 1,000 saying, hey, I want to talk to these 5?
No, I mean, so like an online jobs page, that's exactly what you do, right? You're going to put a job posting, usually on like an online jobs page, which again, I think is a really great platform, is you're going to put a job posting and 2 things are going to happen. You're either going to get an application, you're going to get 1,000. There's 2 problems with that. If you get 1,000, well, guess what? You're whatever you're doing for a living, now you're a recruiter and now you're a job hunter, and hopefully you have time to interview them multiple times. The opposite of the problem is if you get 10 and you're like, all right, that's manageable. But now you're only choosing from 10 people. That's a bad problem too when you're choosing from a small sample. But if you choose from a big sample, do it the right way, you're going to be on phone calls all day recruiting on Zoom, just trying to figure out, because we don't want to hire a key position through 1 interview. You want to get 2nd interview, 3rd interview. And so I have 60 recruiters.
I'm going to write that down. I hired over first. I'm already failing in my head. I'm like, God damn it.
So we have 60 recruiters. We have 30 screeners. Our screeners, the recruiters get the talent in the door. The screeners are then select going, let's say you came to me and you need social media. Our screeners, you're assigned a screener. The screener is going to go into that bucket of 1,000 social media people, and they're going to conduct an interview for usually between 20 and 30 minutes with every single one of the 1,000. Now, I could have 5 clients needing social media, so that 1,000 could cover 5 of my clients based on what they need. But we're going to screen all 1,000. We're going to do a phone call. So like my screeners are taking 8, 10, 15 Zoom calls a day at 20, 30. These are very talkative people that love to talk. That's how they get energy. They'll do the first screening. There's a ton of red flags that we just automatically mark off for, right? This and that. So that was 1,000 to 300. From the 2 to 300, pass all those resumes to a secondary team, just like a management level screeners. Secondary team is then going to do another interview with those 2 to 300. Secondary team will then have their same, kind of like best man, right? They're going to, based off their batch, move another 50 to 75. Once we get that screening done, there's the final screen, our 3rd round. Those 50 to 75 are just looking for a check mark. We're not trying to disqualify anybody, but we're trying to get a check mark that this is going to be good to present. So if we get 75 check marks, I have 5 clients that month looking for a social media VA. I'm going to divvy it up based on some specifics and specialties. And we'll go, here's 7 for you, 7 for you, 7 for you, 7 for you. And what you'll do at that time, then you'll jump on a guided call with us, with a final interviewer. Our final interviewers are the highest of the high position. They know the screeners. They know the 1st, 2nd, 3rd rounds. The final interviewer is basically just an orchestrator. They're going to get on a call with you, and they're actually going to lead your final interview for you. So you're going to jump on. Final interviewer, all 7 candidates are going to be there. Up to that point, you know nothing about them. But if you trust our process of 1, 2, 3, 4,
so I've done this before. Do you guys hire where they're all on the same call?
So we don't hire where they're all on the same call. They all do start on the same call, but we will do 20 minutes with each person. So you might tell me, I just don't want to spend 2.5 hours, but it's like you're spending 2.5 hours, but the process was hundreds of hours. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it might feel a little bit long, but I don't want to be the company that's just like, hey, I picked this one for you. And you're like, they're actually really good. I can't stand their energy. I can't stand their, I don't align wise. It's just not working for me energy wise. So that 2 to 3 hour call is key.
I've done it where we use the local team time to hire years back. Yeah. They brought everybody in, and then let's say you had 5 final recipients, whatever you're hiring for, an underwriter or whatever. You sit down on a Zoom call with them. They have their guided representative. Yep. But at the same time, all 5 of them are on the same call. So they all see each other. They are all talking to each other in a sense, right? Like they get nervous about it too. So they see who they're up against. Mm-hmm. It is weird, but it works out perfectly. And in the long run, it actually worked out really well.
Well, what's interesting for us is we have all 5 in the Zoom, but they're usually in the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes it'll make sense to bring in 2 candidates together to see how they interact, like a group style type thing. It's a little Chick-fil-A thing we do kind of off of there. But for the most part, the interview is they're just sitting in the Zoom waiting room, and then they're brought in and out. And you actually kind of get to bring one in, bring one out, bring one in, and let's go back to this person. So
Yeah,
they're all sitting there.
It lets them feel like they're sitting outside of the principal's office, right?
Correct. And it's a good sense of competition. It's a good sense for you to be able to go, let me ask number one that question, because that's not a good question for number three. And then at the end, ultimately, you have the choice to select, who you want from that. The really cool thing about that is once you select that person, those 4 to 5 candidates usually, because of how many people we hire, will sit around for a week or two still looking for a job. So if you bring someone on and it's just a catastrophe for some reason, maybe nothing you did, nothing we did, it's just not working out, you immediately can go back and be like, all right, remember Sarah? I liked her.
Yeah.
Remember John? I liked her. That for you as a business owner cuts down so much headache. It also allows you to kind of have like an iron fist of like accountability to be like, hey, it's not going to take me a lot of hours to replace you, which I'm not trying to be a jackass or be a jerk to you, but I'm just letting you know, like, I have a recruitment company that can replace you.
You have to also know that as a business owner that you need to be doing that, right? Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
People don't. That was one of our biggest mistakes. Was we went on for months using somebody that we should have fired way sooner, and that bit us in the ass so many times over.
Which
but
is
that's things just business owners find out the hard way. You're going to pay for this one way or another. What's Josh saying over there?
I was asking to have moved the mic up a little.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Oh, fella. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Appreciate it. We'll never cut that on the black.
Problem. If Paul, with our cameras, if anybody has any questions, so as always, drop them in the comments. This is always going to be a Q&A throughout, so always drop questions. What are some of the more successful people doing? Right.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Yeah. So first off, we always kind of mentioned executive admin's the base of where I love to stay. From there, I really like to look at all the business. So every business follows the same 5 categories for the most part. You have marketing, you have lead gen, you have fulfillment, right? Which, depending on what kind of real estate you're in, fulfillment's a little bit different. Then you have client retention, and then you have, just kind of taking care of the clients. It's really interesting. A lot of times in investing, think that your clients actually, after you buy their home at a discount or whatever you're doing, you buy their fix and flip, that you think that they're just dead to you, and then now they're just, because a lot of times you're buying people in distress, right? You just think that they're going to go off and live a broke life forever. A lot of those people can refer you. It sounds awful, but it's just true. A lot of broke people that in situations where you have a home, and I'm not the way that's has to sell their home in distress, hasn't run into something legitimate that caused that. They're not just intentionally broke. But in general, when you'll find a lot of people you buy investment properties from, they're broke because of decisions they made. They also know a lot of other people that make broke decisions. And so, it's actually really interesting when we talk about other areas of success that aren't highlighted a lot, is a client care department for post-transaction to just call in on those clients you bought their home from them and be like, hey, we bought your home last year. We just wanted to check in. Is there anybody else that might need some help, getting out of their home or whatever it is? And so there's some really unique things that I learned from traditional real estate that isn't done a lot in investor real estate that can bring a lot of deals.
It's the bottom of the funnel. It really is like it's the bottom of the funnel, and everybody drops it right here. Everybody close on it, done. But no, absolutely re-nurturing.
That person has no assets for the most part, usually in this space again. So you're like, I'm not going to get another asset. But they know a lot of people.
But it's also just using them, turning them into bird dogs, right? Yeah. Like, hey, if you know anybody, you just solved this person's problem, right? In one way or another, you are actually you've helped them tremendously, right? Everybody wants to hate on investors, but fuck you all. We help people tremendously, nonstop. That person is now a lot of times happy and they're willing to provide help to somebody else. Hey, listen, I understand my neighbor is going through something else. Her husband just died. Can you help them? And a lot of times that always goes so far. Nobody does it. Nobody does that little post-care follow-up. And that can go into anything. Like you said, all sales is just a funnel. It's a different fucking funnel. It's the same. It's the same outline. You're doing the same marketing, sales, feedback, follow-up. It's all the same. People just don't like to do the work. They like to skirt around the work and try to find a different easy button.
So so when you follow that funnel, you got the marketing, and that's obviously a whole thing in and of itself. I think there's a big difference between branding and marketing. I think a lot of people, when they hire a VA, they're looking for someone to post on their Facebook business page or post like that's more of a branding play. If someone looks you up to see, are you legitimate? Are you just some person on the side of the road trying to buy a home? There's a big difference. When I hire someone for branding, it's to be branded. Marketing is more of a direct call to action, usually, or some type of funnel that's going to get them to do something. Marketing is rarely, I'm awesome, sell me your home. It's got direct call to action. So, you know, when we're talking about VAs and brand social media, that's a big place. Obviously, VAs are less used in marketing from a send out a flyer or things like that. A lot of that's still lead gen based. But fulfillment, I mean, we find a lot, you know, in the VA space. There's not a lot of, you know, when you get a deal on the road, and I know you do some dispositions live and things like that, like there's just so many things that fall through the cracks. You know, you get 3 sellers that are like, yeah, we'll sign now, and then they never sign.
Mhm.
And then you got to track them down, right? And if you're truly continuing to lead generate, who's calling? And this isn't a cold call, so people get confused on who's calling the leads from 6 months ago that said they were signed and never signed. Who's calling that person?
One of the biggest consultations I had recently, and it was pretty much 4 Indians all chasing leads.
Yeah.
Nobody was working follow-up. Nobody's working transactions.
Yeah.
Nobody was working dispositions, and they were all doing speed to lead.
Yeah.
First one to answer the phone. They all wanted to be the saving grace, right? To come
Yeah.
in, swoop the deal up. That's great, but there are so many steps in real estate.
Yeah.
If you're doing a wholesale deal, it doesn't end when you get it assigned,
Yeah.
right? You still have to be, if you're a point of contact with that seller, you have to be helping title, clear title. You have to be going through all these steps. You have to find the heirs, all these things.
Your counselor.
If you're not invested in that, right, your time, energy, and money, this is why you're making the big bucks.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. They think they're just making bucks by finding them out of thin air. But
Yeah.
no, you have to be making them. You have to be forcing these deals through square peg, round hole.
Yeah.
But you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Sorry for the long race, man. I don't know. I got nothing. What's your long-term play with investors, right? So you hire on VAs, right? So now you help them find somebody. I like them. Mary's doing a good job. XYZ. What's the weekly follow-up? What's the coaching and all that?
Yeah, as far as like me as a company owner, so there's a few different things. Most companies, they have an upcharge of an hourly rate, right? We just have a monthly contracted rate with you, which can vary from a few $100s a month to thousands if you need a big team, right? Just kind of depends on what. It's also really unique. Most people are like, VA, you're going to pay an extra $1,000 a month to us for this VA. Oh, another VA, well, it's another $1,000 a month to us. Like it just gradually, it just scaled to that. I don't like that because once you're out first, second, third, and fourth VA, you don't need to pay me the same amount of money because you're already starting to learn a lot of the lessons I taught you in lesson 1. So why would you pay me the same amount of money? So we have graduation programs where it's like, but I also don't want you to be like, hey, Justin, thank you. I don't ever need you again. I want to be able to help all your hires, but not charge you for all your hires. So we have some like unlimited programs where someone might come to us and pay us for 2 or 3 VAs worth, but then we'll let them use our services forever. But our coaching costs may cut down with them directly. So, so what's really interesting is our US-based team, we call them CSMs. Their job is to coach our clients. So on the investor side, we have investor-based coaches that come from the real estate. That's what my dad actually came on to hire. He runs our real estate kind of CSM team where he's coaching people in the real estate sector on how to use their VA. So it's not like here's a VA and here's some library training. It's like, no, you're meeting with your coach every week. And we're not coaching on here's how to do the direct mailer. Like that's what you're good at. You're kind of coaching for. Ours is more like, hey, why are you using your sir? Why are you not doing this with your VA? We're trying to help you grow that leverage. And so that way you don't have the same issues you had where it's like, yeah, it was kind of me to them,
Well, even like how do you get them paid, right? There were so many things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know until you find out what you don't know. And unfortunately, you end up firing.
Well, and that's where we cut people's time down because like on the first call, it's like, all right, so what you're going to do is you're going to go to Slack. You're going to get a Slack account for free. I'm going to connect your VA to your Slack account. Here's how you guys communicate. Hey, we're going to go to wise.com. Here, I already have your VA's bank account information. I'm plugging it in while call. Cool. Every Friday, come to this link, click here. Like we're doing those 10 things that a lot of times would take you. Oh, screenshot monitoring software. Hey, I'm going to install that screenshot monitoring software.
Like, I didn't know that I had to monitor the clicks and the mouse movements. Like,
well,
and then I'm sitting and watching it. And now, listen, I don't like nitpicking people. I don't like doing that at all, micromanaging. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, she hasn't moved her mouse in a while. Like, why is that? I'm sitting there, I shouldn't be doing that.
I always say this, it's like an office. Most people have an office, not so they can always talk to their team members, but so that way they know that their team members come in at 8 o'clock, leave it. Like, it's not a micromanaging, but I want to know if my team's here on time.
Mhm.
You're probably not going to let your guy back here behind, the desk that your video stuff show up an hour late after we start this session.
God damn it, no, Thomas.
It wouldn't work, right? It would. So the problem is people think that it's micromanaging to have on screen show. I'll be honest, don't tell my team this. I don't ever hardly check it, but I can't.
It's just a form of accountability, and a lot of people don't have that.
And it's a form of, hey, something suspicious is happening. They're not really performing well. Let me go check this. Cool. So those are all the things that your coach for us is going to do, is make sure that you have it set up in a line. Because if you have all the things set up that we can set up with you, and you actually do what you're supposed to, and you say, hey, this guy's not working out, I don't have to be like, well, it's probably you. I'm going to go, well, did you do all these things? Yeah, you did. Okay, then yeah, it probably is the VA, right? So
I wanna circle back, right, just on what I was talking about earlier, right? That first investor starting out,
Yeah.
3 to 5 deals, wants to start out cold calling. Obviously, that's a bad practice.
Yeah.
You're going to suggest getting a manager to manage his time better. This way, he can actually work calls, do follow up. How long does that work until he actually step out of that role?
step out.
So,
That's sir.
like, because if he wants to offload that position eventually,
Mhm.
right? That's what a lot of times wholesalers, they want to offload that position. So even managing his time and all that better, what is that process?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about revenue, right? So, like, if you're making $2,000 a month right now, and we see a lot in wholesale people still have W-2 jobs, right? Which I love. Like, some people are an all go in personality and burn the boats, and so like, I need stability because I still got family and kids at home while I do this. I love both ends, but what I find is you're making $2,000 a month, and you have a VA doing some things so you can lead generate more and things like that. Like, that's one thing, but when that VA, as you're saying, helps you get to a certain point where you're like, step out of this, I don't think someone should be stepping out of that until they're making 6 figures at least, probably a couple 6 figures. You're actually netting a good amount of money. So for me, like in the investing game, when I started to make 20, 30 grand a month with real estate investing or my retail or whatever I was doing, I then went, okay, I'm making 20 to 30. I have 2 options. I can take a few grand, hire a few more VAs, and I can attack the hardest thing to do, which is to hire a cold caller. I can take that extra time to hire them, or I might just spend 10 of my 30 and hire someone that comes into my office and they do that for me, right? A US-based person. And so I think you have to lead with the revenue first, right? Unless you have a massive savings account or you have some type of money that, most people don't have, and you can eat it for 6 months or a year and invest it, you have to get to the revenue piece, right? So I always tell people when I can consult them, I'm like, okay, cool. You're making $3-4 grand a month right now. You have an executive admin through us. You're killing it. When you can get your revenue, when you and your executive admin dial in your lead generation, their admin, when you can get that 10, 15, 20 a month, now we're going to talk about how to get you into that next cycle of being a business owner, right? It's going to be hiring maybe the college kid to come in and, you to mentor. Maybe it's hiring the person that's already in the game that's doing okay, that needs a more steady paycheck. But if you can't do any of that without revenue, and I think maybe I'd love your opinion on this. I think a lot of people get into partnerships at businesses and then investor sale game. They'll form this little company. They'll have a partner in it, and they're only doing that because they lack revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, they're like, "This was the stupidest thing I ever did," and they break out.
Again, it goes back to the easy button.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize, like, real estate costs money. If you want to do this as a profession, it costs money.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of it is that you can do it part-time. You can be a teacher and wholesale on the side, right? You can do all these creative things. You can do your own networking and free lead gen, right? Sending out mailers, postcards, your own, like, not giant bulk things. But if you want to be successful in this, and that means going from doing consistent deals, right? If you're just getting into wholesaling and you just did your first or second deal, you're not going to be successful if you're trying to offload the thing that makes money. Okay, you have to get really goddamn good. I did a whole stupid video. It's really cliche on 10,000 hours and all that, right? Like, you have to master your craft. So you realize, all right, now I know I can offload this because if I get my phone to ring, I'll still be able to solve these problems. All right, well, I can now substitute. I have enough deals that are problems that I'm solving that I can step away from this. It can take a 30% hit because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody's not going to operate at 100%,
No.
right? You're going to step in, somebody's going to operate at 60% efficiency of you, right? That's okay, right? But now you're going to offload, you're going to work them back up, you're going to train them, and you're going to keep on building. Your first goddamn hire shouldn't be to offload what made you successful, right? What is starting the income, because it's all you're going to be doing now, strangling this kid that he's not making you the money or anything like that, right?
Yeah,
that person didn't fix your problems.
It's interesting. Real estate's one of the only industries in the entire ecosystem where you can do it all yourself, which is a blessing and a curse, in my opinion. The blessing is you can get in part-time, you can get in and survive a long time, even with great margins a lot of times, right? The curse is a lot of times, since you can do it all yourself, you do it for yourself too long, and then you have a job when you're trying to achieve freedom. But I always like to say a restaurant owner rarely starts a business and all of a sudden does it themselves. They can't seat the people, they can't cook the food, they can't be the waitress or waiter, And so but those people also usually have a lot of debt, a lot of debt, right? They don't succeed as much because of that debt burden on them. And so there's a lot of blessings in real estate, which is why I think it's so fascinating. Well, whenever an HVAC company starts, they have no problem hiring me from day one, because they're like, I need someone to answer my phone calls. I'm on the job installing an HVAC system. But real estate, investors or agents are like, well, maybe I need you, maybe I don't. So it's just really interesting how real estate is one of the only places in the world where you can kind of operate without a team if you don't want to.
But that's what I love about it. I've said for years that it's the best single family residential is the best.
Absolutely.
It's the best vehicle for money making, right?
Yeah.
You can be a retail agent, you can be an investor, you can be a wholesaler, you can just create notes, you can do leases with them, you can do arbitrage, you can do a million different things, right?
A mixture of them. Yep.
You can do roofs on them, you can be a plumber, right? Because there's things that need it, somebody's living there, things break. So anything around sales focuses around that thing.
Yeah.
I love it to death. And as long as you can understand it, you can make a lot of money with it. One thing you kind of you scratched the surface and kind of piqued my interest. What about like hiring, right?
Yeah.
So roofers, let's just say, trying to find. If I'm sitting there, if my job is to hire door knockers, right?
Yep.
I just need to generate this mass of door knockers go out there, but I have to teach them, I have to train them, and hire them. Is it worth it to hire somebody to just do that hiring process?
Yeah.
Offloading that to people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Walk me through that process.
Yeah. So you're saying, is it worth hiring a VA to like
just do hiring?
To just do hiring, yeah, 100%. It's an HR. Like, especially, like, we have a lot in HR. Like, I have 150 people, so I have HR VAs that just do HR. In real estate, same thing. When I ran my traditional real estate team, I wanted 50 agents on my team. So every time an agent joined our team, I didn't want to train them on everything. I didn't want to set them up in all the systems and the MLS and all these things. So we hired a VA that did like a new agent boot camp, right? The VA many of the times wasn't teaching the boot camp, but the VA would be like, hey, are you showing up to boot camp day one on Zoom? It's like almost like kindergarten.
Yeah.
I'm going to play this video. We're all going to watch it together. Cool. Everybody fill out this form. Everybody set up your door knock, your door knocking app. Hey, everybody put in your shirt size here because I've got to get you your uniform. Like, just all that logistical things that go on with hiring a door knocker. Hey, our team went from 10 door knockers to 8. We need 2 more. Well, that HR person can put out ads, right, on Indeed and things like that. And that's all things that a VA, if it's systematized, shouldn't need. I mean, they could pay $3 an hour for that, right? Let's do this, do this, do this. I'll give you a great example. When I first started to grow the team, I found a employer in the Philippines. Some of us may have heard of before, T-Mobile. They were hiring. T-Mobile was hiring 100 Filipino workers per month. And so what happened with those new 100 call center people? Guess who they had to get trained by? A call center manager.
Okay.
So the T-Mobile had call center managers that were training 100 new employees a month. So when I needed to onboard for my real estate team, guess who I went and hired?
The managers?
The T-Mobile managers in the Philippines. Now they were making $10 an hour. Woo, big dollars compared to 3. But now when I brought that T-Mobile manager that was used to being held accountable by big corporations for 100 new recruits, and I said, hey, I need you to take care of my 5 recruits. They're like, what?
It's vacation.
So easy. And they're so good. And because they work for big billion-dollar corporations, they're like, well, okay, well, I made you a spreadsheet for this. I made you a spreadsheet for that. I've written you a bi-weekly report. Here's your start. I'm like, at 22, I was like, what is all this? Like, I said little things I didn't even know about yet. I'm like giving these reports I didn't even put together or ask for. And they're like, hey, here's an update progress report on Johnny. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. So yeah, 100%. It's actually really interesting. I might take the sword for this one later, but non-real estate industry, usually our business owners a little bit faster than the real estate industry because we can do it ourselves. What I mean by business owners is like a business owner, in my opinion, on a long-term scale. I think if you ask most business owners, what's your goal in life? They're going to go, I want to have some freedom and some, things like that. And a lot of times, unless you're actually acquiring the assets like we talked about earlier, there's never going to be into the game of into the wholesale. When you grow a team, if you got a team like you have here, you can probably go away for a week or two, know that some deals are still being done, something's still happening. And so real estate's one of the only industries where you can kind of get away without having a true business with a lot of people in it, which is great. It's still, like you said, it's the blessing of the industry too. But what's interesting is that a lot of times it conflicts with people's goals. They're like, I want to be able to go away on vacation and close 20 wholesale deals while I'm on vacation. Well, you got to have a team to do that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to magically just come back to 20 contracts signed. They came out of thin air. And so it's just a really interesting dynamic that real estate's one of the most effective places to put VAs, but there's the most resistance because people are like,
it depends on everybody's business is different, right? I have friends that are big investors. Yeah. They have their portfolio. They're single entrepreneurs. Yep. They do 7 to 10 flips a year, right? Maybe 5 in a full year. Nothing crazy. They make their profits. They hit their margins, and they're just living life, right? 100%. They go on vacations when they want. They're happy. Yep. The thought of scaling like this, I bet some of them will be there on Thursday. I'll introduce you to them. The thought of scaling, of having an office, of having payroll, it freaks the shit out of them, right? Like it is a stress burden. The worst thing about employees is that they have to eat.
Yeah, 100%.
It sucks. I wish they didn't, but you have to feed them. Yep. So at the end of the day, caring about them, all of that goes so far. And people think that VAs are just a number, that they're just no. Like when you start hiring out, they are all wet puppies. Yep. They all get offended by everything. Yep. I understand that. They're not used to our customs right off the bat. So when I'm like a Brillo pad, right? I just rub everybody the wrong way. I don't mean it that way, but it is what it is.
I couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, that was another rant that I had no follow through on it. Where do you see? Are there any regulations coming or anything like that? Any speed bumps that you run into?
No, not really. I mean, the U.S., especially since Trump was last in office, they made a lot of good treaties that help this what we call insourcing, outsourcing. It's really interesting. A lot of people think that when you hire outside the country, you're taking away economic dollars from here. It's actually the opposite. Like if we can take a wholesaler from doing a deal or two a month and they get their freedom back to do 3 or 4 deals a month, you don't realize you're churning real estate. You got title companies involved. You got real estate agent commissions sometimes involved, depending on how the deal's done. You got people moving.
The wheels, the cogs just.
So it's like that $500 we just sent to the Philippines help their economy, but we just stirred a whole bunch of this economy. And so, what's really interesting is when Trump was in, there's a lot of good treaties that just solidified a lot of things that have been around for a long time. So, obviously, depending on the upcoming cycle of how everything's going and where I think it will go. I think it's only going to be up from here, hopefully, in my opinion, of where I want it to go. But, I think it's going to be a good upward trajectory. I think the other thing is with all this technology, software, and infusion and integration, like it really is making less and less difference where someone's located. More and more. We've been that way 10, 15 years now. Zoom, I want to tell the world, Zoom existed before COVID, right? A lot of people didn't know about COVID, but it's just becoming so interconnected. There's really no speed bumps yet. Could there be one?
Because you don't even have to use Zoom now, too. Like you can just use, like you said, WhatsApp and then do WhatsApp call. You use Slack. I was using WhatsApp. That's the difference. Sorry. But I was using WhatsApp, and because again, a lot of times it's free and it's always available in these foreign countries.
Yep.
All of my in-laws are on WhatsApp.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. One of the craziest things is a lot of times now we'll have like a dentist office call us, and they're like, "We need a VA." I'm like, "What for?" They're like, "Well, we heard about your virtual receptionist." So we actually have robots now that we can put the VA on that the VA can drive. So when someone walks in the door to a dentist office, the VA is actually on a robot that they're driving, and they can walk up to the guest in the lobby and be like, "Hey, I'm going to turn on your paperwork," and the screen on the robot will actually turn from their face on a Zoom, and it will flip the screen. The screen will be like all their new registration paperwork, all of that. So you can either have that stationary on like where you normally walk up to the dentist desk and do your registration. You can have it on a flat screen, with the computer. You can also do it via like a robot. So there's a lot of cool things that are coming that we use like that. Like right now,
Is that like little fat Jetsons made robot that rolls around?
There's one that looks like that too. There's some really like $100,000 versions, and I have a version that I use a lot that's like $2-3 grand. It looks almost like what are the things that you like ride on that are just two wheels?
I suppose
like a Segway, almost like a Segway. It's like a Segway. It's like a Segway with an iPad on top, which is really interesting. When you hear robot, you're like thinking they can shake your hand. No, it's like a Segway with a robot on top connected to the Wi-Fi, and the person can drive it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool, and they can even raise like their height level to where you're at. And so there's just a lot of unique things coming. So I don't see a lot of new blocks. Now, that doesn't say tomorrow we wake up and Philippines is in a war with the U.S., but we really don't. I mean, there's just no indication of that right now.
Well, that's what you also did touch on. You mentioned just the Philippines, like weather and all that comes into play. A lot of times people don't realize that they don't have power. They don't have the infrastructure set up. So don't expect them to be working on stuff.
Actually, I disagree. Don't expect them to be working nonstop if you do the recruitment yourself and you don't know everything. So right now, there's a lot I agree with too. It's like there's a way higher chance of downtime, right, compared to the U.S. But what's really interesting is when you go through someone like us, and this isn't just a look at us, there's other companies that know this too, is like, let me ask you a question, and this is just a basic one. At your house or apartment, wherever you're at, how many internets do you have?
One.
Why?
Just because.
Because that's the way we do it in America. Well, why do we all have one internet? Well, it's because it's up online 90% of the time, 99% of the time. Well, in the Philippines, what do you think about infrastructure and how lines are run and things like that? A lot of times the reason internet goes down is because someone cuts the line or something happens because it's just a third world country. Well, in the Philippines, we recommend all of our employers have their VA have 3 internets. Because when one goes down, if your AT&T goes down, what can you just go up to your router and do?
And switch it over.
You can switch it over to Verizon, right? And so now your VA's got way more online time. What we found in the surveys, when our VA says my power went out, a lot of times their power never went out because I can check their power grid. A lot of times their power didn't go out, they just lost internet. And it's because they didn't want to pay for 2 or 3. But you would never probably think to ask them how many internets they have.
What's the average cost for something like that?
It could be like $8 a month.
Okay.
And so, if me as an employer, if I have a really important position, I'm like, I'll pay $16 a month to have you have 2 internets, right? Hey, my CEO now, she makes a lot of money. She's in charge of a lot of people. I was like, how much is the generator? Thinking it was like $6 grand. I didn't know. She's like $2 grand. And so I was like, for her position, I was like, all right, it's like 3 internets. I got, a generator. And again, that's like high level. Like there's other things you can do too to like keep a lot of things on.
You're absolutely right. I didn't know about the internet thing. That's pretty cool.
And it's crazy. You can also, it's also where you hire, right? It's a country of 13,000 islands. If you hire someone off of Online Jobs PH and they don't tell you where they're from, or you don't even know or care to look it up, they could be on an island with 50 people. Okay, there's internet there, but like you said, it's going to be up 20% of the time because of weather and storms and monsoons. So, like for us, we're very particular on what's your computer software, and if you guys are listening here, don't take it as like you're only going to get that if you come through us. If you go to Online Jobs PH and ask the right questions, right? Ask what their RAM is on their computer. Ask what their internet speed is. Ask how many internets they have. In that 900-page book I mentioned, if you ever want to copy that to your group, like all those questions are in there. It's like you don't have to come to me and use us to know how to do that. We just kind of make sure you don't forget and make sure that you do it the right way. But yeah, all those things will help with that. So our team's online, my US team's online 98-ish% a year. Our Philippines team's on about 94. So they are a little bit lower, but not compared to a lot of horror stories.
And I didn't want it to make it seem like, they're always sitting in the dark. No, that's not the case.
Well, it could be.
What I wanted to get was a lot of times you do end up having to buy and generate. Yeah. So that's a big thing. Anybody that actually works for my friends' investors company, if they're a solidified employee of that company for more than so long, they have their own generator. Yeah. A lot of times they're providing that. And it's shit that, again, you don't realize that you need because you're so used to every work, right? You don't know what you don't know. So you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know I need 3 internet providers to my VAs, but that's pretty cool things to figure out and do.
Yeah.
What I think I touched base on a lot of things. Tommy, you got anything for me? I'm running blank on stuff.
No, those generators gotta be the uptime.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any like stats for that? How many? If you have to call,
Yeah.
You know how many like calls are making to get contract and everything.
Yeah, that's really a question. So, I mean, the data we do have is very skewed. I tell you what I would expect. I tell you what I expect based on calls. For every 100 conversations we have, we want 8 to 10 conversations that could eventually get somewhere. Now, what does that mean? Does that still mean like, no, we're not selling, but yes, we're underwater? We need to do something, but no, we're not doing it with you. Out of 100 conversations, I'm looking for 8 to 10 that have a potential to do something at some level. From there, for 100 conversations, I'm looking at roughly half a deal, which most people would be like, if you're calling 100 conversations, your conversion is probably different than a VA, right? And so I look for half a deal out of every 100 conversations.
So, was it 100 of the 10?
Sorry. Yeah. So I want 100 every day. Our goal is to call 100 people.
Mm-hmm. And get 10 warms.
And get 10 warms from that. Sometimes I always like to say 100 conversations because I can dial 500. If I'm using a dialer, dialing 500, getting 100 conversations. We know sometimes some days you won't get 100 conversations, but for every 100 conversations, however long it takes, I want a half a deal coming out of that. Now that half deal is usually coming out of several months of those 10. But the reason why I say half a deal is over the course of 12 months, that VA just spun you 6 deals. Now, if you were calling 8 hours a day, you probably wouldn't be very happy with 6 deals for the year based on your time, your hourly rate, what you need to do. But when we outsource and we're paying 1/10 of what our hourly rate is, we should be okay with that type of return. And that's where most people struggle because you're comparing what you could do to what they're doing. I'm okay, especially with like a Metroplex like DFW. I can't personally call them if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're out in this random area, half a deal every month, and that's 6 deals. But it also comes down to your numbers. If you're in a market where your average wholesale is $1,500, that might be kind of rough when you're only getting half. You don't want your VA making $7,000. You're paying a VA $7,000, right? So the numbers have to align. But in the good markets, if someone's doing a half deal and a wholesale fee is 5 to 10, obviously I know market conditions and timing and all that. Or if you're fixing flipping or holding, some of those numbers don't matter as much. But we like a half deal out of every 100 conversations. Okay. Now your VAs that can get through good conversations, especially the VAs that can learn how to get through conversations really fast, we'll start to see half a deal for 60, 70 conversations because they start to learn, okay, this is a conversation. This person has they're not going anywhere, right? So they'll get through it faster. The other thing we find with VAs when it comes to cold calling numbers is we're looking for 3 VAs. I almost always recommend, we haven't talked to this at all, when you hire a cold caller, you should always hire 3 at the same time.
Why is that?
The reason is because it's competition.
Okay.
So, like for we actually at Spear Rocket, we believe in this so much. I actually only charge you for 1, and I give you 3 when it comes to that position. The reason why is we know facts. Probably say U.S. based, if we put 3 people in there, 3 people are all going to have very drastically different numbers. Someone's going to grind an extra hour a day to prove themselves to you. Someone's going to do better follow up. Someone's going to have better scripts and do role plays better. And so when you just hire 1, you have nothing to compare it to. The only thing you have to compare one person to is to you.
Yeah.
It's not super fair because you're probably the good. If you're at that point hiring, you're probably really good at cold calling yourself. And so when I hire 3, there's not only a little internal competition among all 3, but that internal competition, what it does is your best person spits out a baseline for you. They spit out a standard that maybe if you had just had 1 that they wouldn't have hit or you wouldn't even have paid. So by hiring 3, especially if they know their job's on the line over the next 3 weeks, you're almost always going to end up with 1 rock star. Sometimes you might hire 4 or 5 to get your 1 rock star. It's very rarely you hire 3 ISAs and you keep all 3 forever. It's usually hire 3 to 4, keep 1, hire 3 to 4 to keep 1, which is why when someone comes to us for it, we batch them and we give you 3 that we think would work really well. If you're on your final interview, you have 5 or 6 and you're going to pick 3. And then
so you'll find your outlier and then you kind of build your business off of them, right off of the KPIs.
Correct.
Like, this is what my average should be that we're trying to meet. Those are the goals for the month. If you're under here, you're going to get dropped. You're going to get falling out. So it kind of keeps them knowing what the requirements
It's really interesting. One of my sales director, he's US based, and he runs, this is sales for the VA company, not necessarily VAs making sales, but it's funny. Every time we get a new sales rep on our team, that's basically a cold caller. He goes, I don't think this person's going to be successful. They're usually successful. The ones he's like, this person's going to kill it. Usually it's awful. Mm-hmm. And so what's really interesting is I kind of like in traditional real estate when I hired agents, I didn't really actually know who was going to be good, especially if they're commission only role or something like that with cold calling. Like our cold callers probably make on average $3 an hour plus commission of some sort. So when you got a position that's not that expensive, like it doesn't hurt to hire 2 or 3. It will be a game changer for those that can do it. Because you're floating the cost of the VA's pay for a few weeks, but 2 weeks of an extra VA or 2, it's well worth it.
So when it comes to marketing campaigns, I try to tell people at least have a full marketing plan of it. If it's a 90-day campaign, make sure you have 3 months worth of reserves. Right? Don't take off the gas until you run that whole campaign. What is a good projected budget for that? Right? If I'm going to hire 3 VAs for my acquisitions, I'm going to run through some speed bumps until they're actually profitable. What's an expected time frame for getting up and running?
So we say $1,500 for 4 months.
Say that again?
$1,500 for 4 months. So that'd be roughly 3 VAs at $500 a month. Okay. So $1,500 a month for 4 months. You're basically $6,000 in. What I look at that point, have I done one deal? And again, I'm kind of a small thinker. I'm your opposite of most gurus that are like, 3 VAs is going to get you 6 contracts a month. Like I just don't think it's not the right expectation to set. I'd rather set the one where it's, hey, it's $1,500 a month for 4 months.
Fucked up when that same guru is selling his own VA services and shit, right? Like,
sure,
it just pisses me
off. Biased. It's like if I walk in here today and you're like, Justin, what VAs do you think I need? I'm like, man, I haven't talked to you long enough to know. Like, I start asking questions, saying, well, how many people you got? What's this? What's your revenue? Like, until I get to know, I don't actually know an answer. But I know in generality that when it comes to the ISA, it's $1,500 a month. It's 3 solid ISAs. Maybe in month 2, you let one go and have to bring on another one, but the cost still stays the same. But you also have time to build up that pipeline, right? If you have $1,500 a month times 4 months, you theoretically should have a ton of warm conversations that might pop in month 5, month 6, month 7. That brings that ROI. What I'm looking for is, are they at least covering themselves? If they're at least covering themselves and I'm building a big pipeline, I'm excited. Now, hopefully they've popped 2 or 3 or 4 deals during that time. That would be amazing. But if during that first 4 months, they pop a deal, a wholesale deal at 6, 7K, they pop whatever, and they're at least even, and you have your systems in place, I will take 4 months of breaking even on one wholesale deal. If they have documented everything with the CRM set up, I can look back and go, wow, they called 50,000 people. We have 580 good, warm conversations. I now know that over the next 8 months, it's going to be really good. If those 580 are contacted. If they went through 4 months and cherry picked one deal out and then followed up with nobody, well, then, yeah, that's not a very profitable gig. It's not going to work, right? If you're just always flatlining. So that's what I'd like to get to. If I had a team of 3, sounds low. I'm looking for 3 contracts a month. And here's why. On one contract, if the VA is costing you $500, I would hope that one contract makes you $5,000 to $10,000 somehow, depending on how you do it, right? Again, if you're wholesaling at $1,500 pop, it's a hard margin to ever get out of. But if one VA gets you 1 contract per month on the long term, and you're making $5,000 to $10,000 on however you do it, that's a really good return. That's a 10x return. It's a really good return, but in our head, we always think back, well, man, a team of 3 getting 3 contracts, that doesn't sound very efficient. It's not always about efficiency. Some of it's about the numbers and the gap of just economy. You're taking advantage of economy at scale.
One of the biggest things is it's like trying to chew a rock. It's wholesalers nowadays, they'll come to you, they'll bring a deal, and they're only working on such small margins. Yeah. They're fucking happy with them. And I'm like, no, that's not a deal. Yeah. That is, you're going to spend way too much time, energy, money. Like, you don't realize, you might walk out of there with $5,000, $1,500, $2,000, but you, over the net cost of 3 months, or whatever time it took, you pretty much are losing money because you could have spent it elsewhere, right?
But you could have worked at McDonald's, gone home to your family every night.
The saddest response is always, I'll be happy with that. I'll be happy with just $5,000. And I'm like, oh my God, all you have to do is just take that mindset and just change it a little and focus your time and energy and stop trying to take bad deals and make them good deals, right? Just try to focus on finding good
Yep.
deals, people will pay, like, people will be so much more happy in the long run.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that VAs can provide, right? Just simplifying your life. It's all about who, not how. That
Yep.
book is such a staple.
It's hilarious you say that. That is in every presentation I give. That book is actually in it.
Because it is really, and using VAs is a way to implement that in your business, whether or not your dentist office, your real estate office, your retail real estate office, whether you're a roofer or a contractor, whatever you can do, you can offload your business by using VAs. But if you're not doing it smartly, if you've never done it before, you're gonna fail, right? And that's with everything, right? You don't know what you don't know until you learn it, right? So one way or another, you're going to spend money on an education. And I strongly advise people to not use other services, right? To try to go and use yours because I love the way you guys built it. And it comes from that user model, right? Like, all right, instead of just, I had a cold calling wholesale shop, I'm just going to start outsourcing VAs for cold calling. Like, no, you understand the whole business behind it, the ins and outs, talking to sellers, solving problems, how to actually build a business, and then what people need.
Well, maybe I should tell this to your audience, but I actually love sometimes when they don't listen to us and they go use another shop, because then when they come and use us, they realize it's just like, whoa. Like it's like a world of difference of just like, it's just such an interesting model when you consult, right? I know you do a lot of that with people, and that's why you do your lives. And when you can see behind the curtain of it, and and I know this isn't really what we're trying to deep dive here, but we also always talk about like changing. I'm a big like Alex Ramosi fan of like $1 million offers. And what was really cool, probably the best moment in my career as a virtual assistant owner and just loving that industry, was when we got to about 3,000 customers a year or two ago. And what I loved is we had such great recurring revenue and all these things that I started to listen to my sales calls of people that, because my sales team is talking with investors like you, and they're getting the objections on VAs and why to use a service and not use a service. And the number one objection I heard, and it was an underlying tone, was people are just scared to take a risk sometimes, which is okay. Like, it's scary to hire people. It's scary to pay someone to then help you pay another person. So it's like this double-edged sword. I'm scared to hire, but now I'm paying a company and I'm paying a person. It's just kind of a weird thing. And so like we probably about 16 months ago, we transitioned to a free trial, which is probably a game changer for most industries. We now actually, if you came to me and said, "Hey, social media manager, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, hey, Nick, for 45 days, we're giving you a free trial. Nothing needed. I'm going to go in 2 weeks, finding you your VA. The next 30 days, you're going to work with that VA, and I'm going to call you at day 46. I'm going to ask you, would you like to spend the next good amount of time with us in this VA, or would you like to return them and just keep going on with your life?" That's been the biggest game changer, because I'm able to get people out of this scarcity mode of being scared. Because if that VA comes in and changes your life, voila, I have a customer.
And if they don't, if they say, "All right, I'm sorry, please fire her,"
no problem. We'll call them and we'll fire them, and it's not a bash on you. It's not a bash on them. It's hey, this didn't work out for whatever reason. And if you give us a good feedback on the VA, and this wasn't for me, we'll put that VA with another person. But if it's just like that VA was absolute dog shit, well, you're probably not going to work with us again, and that's okay. It helps our company too. But it's a really interesting model, because my passion at this point isn't as much about money as it is getting people that leverage they need. So it's just kind of a little side note, but I think that's really at the end of the day what investors do. They go in and get people past their fear.
I love that, because it goes back to when I was lending, right? Like my biggest success was always when I was able to reinforce in the investor's mind, like, hey, listen, I'm only successful if you are.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm here to work my ass off. I'm going to get you the best rate. I'm going to make sure your loan closes XYZ. And then I'm going to make sure you come back to me too. Right. This way we can do it 10 more times. Right. I love that you're actually throwing your word on it. Right.
Well,
like,
and that's
what I'm standing behind.
When I say I call you on day 46, I actually already know by day 30 or 35 whether you're sticking, because our coaches are coaching you every week during that time. So if it's not working, we know by day 20, we know by day 30. Like, it's really a cool system, because we've all been burned by the PPC companies and this company that's got a 12-month contract that you lock into, and you're like, I was way oversold. And whether I like it or not, my VA company is going to get lumped into all other VA companies. Do you know why? Because the word is VA company, right? The word is VA company, and so that's like, if I go to a conference someone's like, you want a booth? I'm like, no, I don't really want a booth. That's why I speak.
Yeah.
Because I have to differentiate that we're not just a
Manager, like
not just a manager.
what do you consider yourself? I don't
Yeah.
want to throw a label
No,
that you don't like.
the best way we consider ourselves is a recruitment service that just has a rock solid consulting agency on it. You know, if I said a management service,
That's what I
Yeah.
started saying, management
Yeah.
service, and then I was like, I don't want to insult you.
we call it pseudo management.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm here to manage you and your VA and help you, but I, at the end of the day, have no say on what they have to do, because ultimately it's your business.
Yep.
And I don't want anybody else to control your business.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can get a hold of us. I'm sure you can drop a link in your
the
guys' group
links
as
are in
well.
the comments later, guys.
The best way to get a hold of us is I made a special book for your guys' group that's real estate investing only. And so obviously, thank you, number one, for inviting me to this. So there's a discount on there that's connected to this group as well. So if we drop that book in there, but you can also go to sphererocketva.com, and that's the best way to find me. It's actually really interesting when people are like, I don't really see you on Sphere Rocket. We're actually in the next probably 5 to 6 years looking to sell our company. So I don't do any social medias anymore because
People don't understand, like, what is the point of marketing? Marketing isn't branding,
Yeah.
right? You're not, listen, it's not me, it's my company.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
Just because I'm the face, like, I'm not actually the face of the thing. I don't need to be the face of the thing
And
to
it's-
have a successful thing.
And it's much easier to sell the company if you ever want to sell something. If you guys ever build side companies or whatever you do, it's easier to sell your company when no one even knows who owns it.
That's
It's
good to know.
it's really interesting.
I'll make sure I keep that for the next company.
Yeah, because like 6 months ago, they're like, "Hey, Justin, people buy the product because they know you, trust you, like you, and things like that. But we need them to know, like, and trust Sphere Rocket, regardless. Because if we buy it from you and you're not here, we want them to buy it because it's Sphere Rocket, not buy it because it's you." So I just say that to you. Go to my website. All my personal socials are on there. But definitely check out the book. Like, the book is
I'm excited
Yeah,
to look at it.
the book's fun. The book is for those that don't have VAs. The book is for those that have VAs through other companies and they just need to do some checking and, you know, hold their VAs more accountable. It's for those that are like, yeah, I don't like Sphere Rocket. I'm just going to try it on my own and we'll come back one day. It's great for them. And it's great for those that are like, yeah, hey, yeah, let's call Sphere Rocket up and run it with.
I love it that you're giving it out for free. I love that you've actually done it because it is something that you need to do, right?
Yeah.
We have our toolkit that I finally give out. And it has our calculators, it's got our contracts, it's got everything in there because that's not where the gold is,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can have all the tools in the world, but knowing how to use them, knowing how to actually do everything with them, that's where the gold is.
Absolutely.
So I give away everything for free. Thursday night in our office, doors open at 5:30. It's going to be a great time. Justin is going to be there. You're going to be talking at it. You're going to be giving out things for free. I'm excited for it. If anybody needs anything, drop a comment, reif.com. Join the Discord server, join the community, learn how to level up, learn how to close everything. If anybody needs anything, let us know. Smash that like button. Keep crushing it. Peace.